Thanks, Sirish, and we are very grateful to National Book Trust for having us here, and of course to the Jaipur Festival, which is shaped up so well, thanks to Namita, William, and Sanjoy. Now we have with us four authors, and we begin with introduction to Ambai. She's known with this name to Tamil readers, lives in Mumbai, and she has been working on sound and picture archives for research on women, Sparrow, which I think is a very important work, archiving work that she has done. Her stories have appeared in 3 volumes entitled The Purple Sea, In a Forest a Deer, Fish in the Dwindling Lake. The second book has shared the Hutch Crossword Award for translated fiction with Lakshmi, and she was awarded the Lifetime Literary Achievement Award of Tamil Literary Garden, University of Toronto in 2007. Now on our extreme left is Benjamin Daniel, the Malayalam writer who lives in Bahrain for last 21 years and has published 10 books in Malayalam, including 5 novels and a couple of short story collections. His books have been bestsellers in Malayalam, had 50 editions in Malayalam, the major book, which is known as the Goat Days, Adu Jeevitam. And he received the Kerala Sahitya Academy Award, 2009, Abu Dhabi Shakti Award, 2008, and many other awards. And he's been translated into English, Tamil, and also into Kannada. And his novel is longlisted for 2012 Man Asian Literary Prize. Many other books, and I think he will talk about them himself. Now we have in the middle Manil Suri, who is essentially a mathematician, but also a novelist, and his novels have been translated into 27 languages, many in European and Asian languages. Novels include The Death of Vishnu, The Age of Shiva, The City of Devi. He writes on Mumbai, and he currently lives in Maryland, where he is professor of mathematics at the University of Maryland, Baltimore country. Sitangshu Yashash Chandra, nearest to me, is a very well-known Gujarati poet, playwright, critical theorist, and cultural historian. He's been recipient of many awards. What's most heartening is that he's been translated and been received, recognized by awards from Odisha, awards from Maharashtra, and awards from Hindi region, such as Kabir Samman, Gangadhar Meher Award, Kriti Samagra Puraskar of Bharatiya Bhasha Parishad, and Kavi Kusumagraj Puraskar, and many other awards. He's been Fulbright Scholar, and he's been also holder of doctoral degrees in 2 different disciplines. He's been Vice Chancellor, very scared of an administrator, but I really love his poems and his plays, which are very interesting. So we begin with our session on why do they write in the languages that they do, because this is, I think, this is very crucial. As you can see, Manu writes in English, but the others could have written in English originally, but they decided to write in Indian languages. So we begin with the 3 Indian authors, and we then come to Manil. So we begin with perhaps Sitangshu, to find out why do you write in Gujarati, and if you can let us know more about your writing.
Well, अपनी मातृभाषा में लिखना वो तो सहज होता है. So I write in Gujarati because I write. I don't think of myself as an Indian author or a Gujarati author. As I started writing, the gradual identity that arose in me was that of a writer. तो एक कवि होता है, लेकिन वो कोई हिंदी या मलयालम ऐसा कवि नहीं होता है. वो तो second thing is that I think there is a 19th century novelist in Gujarati, and his young hero, when he was asked, what is your speciality? So this Saraswati Chandra, he says that I have a special ability. He said, what is it? So he says, I can see without being seen. So there are two types of authors. Authors who want to be seen and authors who want to see. तो वो अपनी जात को दिखाने वाले जो सब होते हैं, मेरा ख्याल है अभी ये मानव जात है, सब कुछ हो सकता है, यहाँ डेमोक्रेटिक है, लेकिन मैं ऐसे लेखकों को चाहता हूँ जो खुद देखते हैं और हमको वो जो देखते हैं वो दिखाते हैं. You should see and show gently what you have seen, rather than be on exhibition and say how many books have been sold and how many awards have been won and what a great person I am. So I think it is the human being who is a great person. तो इसलिए मैं सहज रूप से अपनी मातृभाषा में लिखता हूँ.
Ambai, would you like to comment on that?
Actually, as you said, we could have written in any other language. Actually, in my case, I could have written only in Tamil because my early education was in Tamil. And as I always say, I count and curse in Tamil. And it would have been very difficult for me to write in English. But although I write in one language, my ancestors came from Kerala. And my initial years were spent in Bombay. And then I grew up in Bangalore. And then I studied in Tamil Nadu. And I did my doctorate from Delhi. So although I write in one language, it's informed by many languages. Like most South Indian girls, I also learned Carnatic music. And Carnatic music is in Telugu and Sanskrit and Tamil. And Kannada, the Devranamas are in Kannada. So I feel that when I write, all these languages also come into play. One can't write in just one language. And later when you grow up, English also becomes a part of your experiential world. So I feel a lot of languages come into your language. But one can write only in the language in which one thinks, you know. I don't think in English, I think in Tamil. So it's easier for me to write creative fiction in Tamil.
That's a beautiful way of describing that so many languages really sit in you, although you think and dream in Tamil, and therefore you wish to write in Tamil.
Yeah.
Benny Daniel, would you like to comment on your own Malayalam writing?
Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. This is out of question because I know only Malayalam. Hardly I can speak English, Hindi or Tamil. But when you are coming to the language of literature, you should have a capable to handle the words, the language like a circus man. You have to capable with the sentence or express your vision to the language. It is very difficult for me to express in any other language. So I am very much comfortable with Malayalam. That's why I write in Malayalam. And the question is, are you satisfied with Malayalam? That is, I am satisfied because fortunately my books are selling very well, and I got many awards and everything like any other authors in any other language. And then why should we go for English or some other language? It is a good luck. Maybe it is translated to English, Tamil, Kannada. It is an additional qualification or something. But I am comfortable with Malayalam. That's why I am okay in the nothing related with love of language or nothing.
Thank you. Manil, now you could have written in also an Indian language because you grew up in Bombay and also grew up in a family with film music and interest in films. But what made you write in English?
Well, actually, I don't think I could have written in another language. When I grew up, my parents are actually Punjabi. So they would always speak to each other in Punjabi, but then speak to me in Hindi. So I can't really speak Punjabi, but I can actually understand it. And in terms of Hindi, they would actually mix it with English. So it was always a mixture of Hindi and English, which is actually quite common in, the middle class in Bombay. So then when I went to school, it was all in English. And then we had to learn Marathi because that was the local language. So, there's just this melange of languages. But again, coming back to what Ambai said, it's really the language in which you think. And the language in which I think is English. Also, the other thing is that I really approached writing a little differently in the sense that I'm trained to be a mathematician. And of course, mathematics has no such language. You know, it's all formulas, so it's an abstraction of a language almost. The writing came as a hobby, and it was just something I did on the side. I didn't have any political aspirations, or I didn't even think of myself as a writer, only someone who had a hobby of writing. And so that gradually evolved into a novel, and then that got published. So it's almost like I'm an accidental writer. And you know, now that I think about it, maybe I should have taken more Hindi classes, or really tried to improve that so I could write in that language.
But one question that all of us are worried about is that we do constant experimentations in our languages. We go through the process of both homogenization and heterogenization of our languages. What I mean is that standards emerge over the years, and again standards really start breaking down. New literary dialects emerge, new styles emerge. To that extent, if you look at your own writers of the yesteryears, and if you look at your own self, you are writing and you're constructing your language in a new, novel way. How do you relate to this question of what experiments that you should do, what kind of idioms and proverbs you should bring in? Should you do something which makes your text very difficult to translate? Should you make it easier for the translation into English and other languages? What is your take on this, Sitangshu?
See, there are two ways of reaching out. The Gujarati way of reaching out would first go to Marathi. आणि आम्हाला मराठी फार आवडते आणि काहीतरी येते तरी. I like Marathi and I can speak Marathi. Rajasthan is just next door. Mewadi, Mewati, Marwadi and Gujarati, they're so easy to flow into. So I enjoy this easy flow, and then Hindi. And then a little bit of Nepali and Bangla and Odia and Assamia. It's so easy to move in our languages. तो मुझे ये बहुत पसंद है, इसलिए जो एक्सपेरिमेंट होते हैं गुजराती में, तो I can bring in elements from all these other languages, neighboring languages and neighboring life, a life which is immediately next to me. Oh, why should I go to life which is miles away and sort of away from me and sort of be enamored by it? तो मेरा एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन, मैं फ्रेंच भी जानता हूँ, अमेरिका भी सब है, हमारे खिस्से में है वो सब, लेकिन खिस्से के नीचे हृदय होता है. So I do not want to start with my pockets, but who doesn't like pocket full of money and praise? But if it hides the heartbeat, so in short, experimentation that comes into Indian languages, they come through a liking, admiration of experiments in the neighboring languages. And the experiments in neighboring languages come out of the life, socio-economic, political realities of life immediately around us. तो मैं तो अपने neighborhood को चाहता हूँ. इसका अर्थ ऐसा नहीं है that we do not know the other places which have also influenced us, and we are open. As Gandhiji said, I would let the winds from all over the world come into me, but I'll not be swept off my feet. Gujarati is my 2 feet.
Thank you. Ambai, now there is a lot of statement that we hear often about Tamil language use by the Tamil writers. There's one brand which would desanskritize it and also make it terribly colloquial, terribly what is called Tamilization of literature, of language. What kind of ideas you have about language? Because you've been exposed to so many languages, as you yourself said.
Let me also answer the early question you raised about being translated. The last thing one is thinking of when one is writing is to be translated into any language. One is trying to translate one's physical world and one's experiential world into a language. And the last thing I'm thinking of is whether this can be translated into any other language. That's not at all. About de-Sanskritizing Tamil, that is a movement that started along with this pure Tamil movement. And very often we say that without a knowledge there are Sanskrit words in Tamil. For example, Karunanidhi is a Sanskrit, Karuna and Nidhi both are Sanskrit. And you cannot change that. And where using purely Tamil words is concerned, I feel that for certain expressions like bus stop and other things, we do use Tamil words like Perundu Niruttam, we call it. But if we go to Tamil Nadu and ask anybody, Perundu Niruttam enga irukku, they will say, can't you say bus stop in Tamil? Because they think bus stop is Tamil in any case, because it's become part of the language. So anything that goes into such a pure thing, because they still haven't found out who the pure Tamil is, you see. Because even Idli has come from Indonesia. And Madurai has this beautiful Sungudi sari, which has come from Rajasthan. So they still don't know who the pure Tamil is. So to find a pure language is very difficult. So when I write, I'm not thinking of pure language, but I'm still trying to use alternative Tamil words or English words. Instead of using fan, we use this, the word that is something that everybody can understand. But cycle is cycle. We don't say use a pure Tamil word for that. So you play that idea. You don't go into the purity aspect of it, but you use words which are locally used.
Yeah, I think this reminds me of an event in Patna. As I came out to the railway station and I said to a rickshawala, "Bhai Sachivalaya le chalo." He didn't understand where to go. And when I said secretariat, they said, "To Hindi mein boliye na," because that's one question. But purity, this can be a dangerous thing. So, Manil, one of the things that happens, reactions that a lot of readers of Indian English writers think is that one of the ways we are twisting, we are bending, we are changing the structure of English language to suit our own expression needs and our own creative genius. To that extent, we are also making a lot of changes. We're bringing in lots of innovations in the body structure of English language. What do you do? Do you think in these terms, or you don't think about the language structure at all, and you write in any natural way, the way you've decided to dream or think or read?
So let me answer that question in a second. I just want to address something else first, and that is this idea of which language you write in. Since I've spent most of my life as a professor, I teach, so I always feel that it's necessary to engage people, to explain things. And it's very hard to explain mathematics, and once I started writing, it was India that I was, living in the West. It was always India that I was conscious of explaining or at least presenting to a wide audience. And in that sense, it's been very useful to write in English because you do get a ready audience. Now, when you write in English, the tough part is to actually, my characters are, as you said, in Mumbai. How do you, and they are often speaking, not in English, but they're speaking in Hindi or even Marathi.
Marathi or Konkani.
Exactly. So how do you present that? And I think one of the masters of that is V.S. Naipaul. I mean, when you read some of his, you can actually tell, okay, this is not English, even though it's written in English. These people are actually speaking an Indian language. And that's the kind of endeavor that I like, if I can do that, that's wonderful. Now people might actually add Hindi words, and as you said, there's some words that are not translatable. And so certainly those should be left untranslated. But I think that there's a danger of putting too much of that. A lot of, big chunks of Hindi or something, that doesn't work. The trick is, the difficult part is to get the syntax right. There are certain ways that people speak, and to then translate that into English. so that it really appears that this is a foreign language, even though it's presented in English.
Now, I wanted to ask Benjamin a question which I thought I should. 21 years away from Malayalam speech community. Of course, you have a good, strong Malayali base there too, but you are away from Kerala, 21 years. Does it affect you? Do you think you began to write differently because you live away from Kerala, or you don't think so?
I don't think so, because when you are thinking about translation or writing, when I am writing, I will not bother about how it will be translated. Oh, maybe this word must be very difficult to translate, so I must not use this word. No, not at all like that. I use whatever in my vocabulary field, I use the word as it is. I am not bothered about the translation. But when you are thinking about translation, the question is to whom you are addressing to. All the writers mostly they are telling, no, we are addressing to common world. Not like that. Each writer having a focus to some readers. I can explain like that. If I am writing in Malayalam, one character named Ramachandran Nair or something, the character's name itself says that all the history of that character. Nair means who, what is his caste, what is his history and everything. If I am addressing to a outer world, I have to explain a little bit about the Nair, who is Nair and what is his background and everything. Each writer having such problem. I can tell you one more example like that. You all maybe mostly read that God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. That is a Malayalam novel written in English. You can see in each and every 20 pages you can see a coconut tree in that. You can because it is written for outer world, not for Kerala. If you see any of the Malayalam novel, you cannot see any coconut tree there, because coconut tree is very familiar to Kerala people and they don't want to explain about the coconut tree. This is what the difference between the translated writing and the other writing.
But you have written also about Diego Garcia. You have written about the other kind of spaces which are away from Kerala. So how do you write that? You construct them? You look at them yourself?
My latest novel, it is happening in Diego Garcia, okay. And there are 3 languages I was using in that novel. Malayalam is as a main language. Some characters are speaking Tamil, some by English. I don't know how it will be translated, and when it is translating, all become one language. The difference or the specification in that novel is that different characters are speaking different languages. When you are going for a common translation, all that will away from us, and the essence of the writing will go away. So I think it is very difficult. Even yesterday somebody was telling that one of the novels headline, Akkaporinte 20 Nasrani Varshangal. Very difficult to translate Akkaporinte 20 Nasrani Varshangal. We can hardly translate like that 20 years of Christian quarrel, like that. Akkapor is not at all a quarrel. It is, we can say that it is the fighting, in-house fighting between in-laws, mother-in-laws and the sister-in-laws, like that, in-law fighting, that is Akkapor. In the other word, Nasrani is not Christian. Nasrani having some other history behind it. They came from Persia in AD 325, like that. So each word and each sentence having its own meaning in when we are writing like that. So if you are translating something, I think it will all missing out.
Yeah, you raised a very interesting issue and very important issue of the untranslatability or the difficulties with translation. And it is true that there are these paradigms. There's those who fail to be a great poet become literary critic, and those who fail to be a great literary critic become translators. And in that paradigm, translators have been shown in a very negative way. But at the same time, it's true that there have been great translations. There have been excellent translations, sometimes as good as the original. I mean, if we read Dinkar's translation of Rabindranath Tagore, they are as good as the original. And I understand that Mayakovsky's translation by Dinkar is also equally good. But let me ask Ambai this question of the issue of translation. You have been translated into other languages. So how do you feel about this craft of translation, or the difficulty that Benjamin has mentioned, that it started with writing 3 languages in the same novel, 3 styles perhaps in the same novel, and when you translate them in
translated only into English, and now recently I've been translated into Marathi. But being translated into Marathi was very easy because I sat with the translator. And being translated in English also, I work with my translator a lot. But English, the idioms in English are very different. So very often the colors, the images, the sounds, and the rhythm doesn't come out in English. So sometimes in a conference, when I read out my own story in English, I suddenly say, did I say that? Did I write this? And it sounds very different, And sometimes when the stories are translated, for example, I was in Chicago and I worked with Ramanujan, and Raman is a great friend of mine. So we used to quarrel a lot over translation. He translated one of my stories. And I had said it was about the city of Bombay. So I said that the city lay like a demon. And Raman translated it as the city looked like a demon. So I told him, Raman, I don't agree with this, because a city that is lying like a demon is not dangerous. But a city looks like a demon, it changes my image, and you can't do this. Then there was another word I'd use, where I'd use the word Morgan. Morgan in Tamil means a person who is violent, and you say it sometimes just as a joke, And, but Raman took it as the Sanskrit Murg, which is idiotic, So I had at one point written Murgatanamakam, that is violently moving vehicles in Bombay. So he wrote it as idiotically moving vehicles. So I told him I can't accept that. So he said that, but Morg is idiot. So I ran to the library and I opened the dictionary. And it said Morg is violent in Tamil. And there was another word called Murgi, which means a very stubborn woman. So I photocopied the page and I came back. And I told him, Raman, see, Murgam is violent. And this Murgi, that is me. I'm the stubborn woman. So you can't change what I write. So very often this happens, that in translation, the images you have in mind, they just change,
True. And in fact, if you look at his translation of Guheshwara, the 11th century Kannada poetry into English, he writes Lord of the Caves. And Tejaswini Niranjana has strong objections to the decisions that Ramanujan had taken at that point of time.
Even in one Kurundagai poem, the original poem says people. And Raman's translation is very beautiful, it's very poetic. But where people is written, he says men. He did not have said that he accepted people, In fact, in Hart's translation, he keeps it as people. But Raman changes it to men, I think these small changes make a lot of difference.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to come to Manil about this. When you write about Indian scenario in English, while translating this into Thai or into Japanese, into Chinese, or even into various European languages like Polish, into which your texts have appeared, I'm sure many of the things that go there are things about which they don't know, and therefore there is a chance of mistakes, the kind of mistakes that Ambai was hinting at. Have you come across something like that about your own texts?
So let me say a couple of things about that. First of all, I have some friends who are translators. They actually have a translating agency. And they told me that when they translate something, they don't really try to be one-to-one with the text. I mean, their idea is to capture the essence and express it in a way that will work. And so I wonder, I mean, I've never actually read any of my translations, so I have no idea what people have written. I don't know what I've, you know, actually what things are in these books. But you have to always remember also that anytime you write a book, someone is reading it. So the act of writing is sort of, you know, one part of it. But the idea of a book also includes a reader. The reader brings their own experiences, their own biases, their own knowledge or lack of it, and you're together creating something. And even if they're reading it in English, it's not just the words, the language, but it's also the experiences. I mean, they might be culturally unaware of what you're writing. If I write Hindi words, for instance, someone in India who's reading it in English and sees these Hindi words, I mean, they might not speak Hindi. You know, they might be speaking in Tamil and not understand the Hindi. So there are always going to be gaps in any work that you write. Gaps of experience, gaps of culture, gaps due to translation. And the good thing is that the person who's reading it brings their own experiences to it, interprets it perhaps in an entirely different way. And that's something that it took me a while to kind of be comfortable with that. Any artistic piece, people have all sorts of wild interpretations of it, and in some sense they're all valid. So you kind of lose control when you put out a work out there. It's sort of like, you know, seeing your book turned into a movie. I mean, authors usually hate that, but again, there should be, you know, it's like giving away your baby, and okay, now the world gets to do what they want with it.
Yeah. And now the question is, I mean, if somebody translates your novels into Hindi or perhaps into Punjabi,
Right.
Or into Marathi, perhaps they will look a little different, and you might be more interested in looking at those translations.
Yeah, I would probably hate them.
Okay.
I mean, I actually, it's not the translation, but someone read out my novel. You know, there's an audio version of The Death of Vishnu. And, you know, first of all, he mispronounced my name, so that was already like, well. And then all the voices, like the Indian accent, I don't know if he was American or what, but it was like, and it was like someone speaking in Swedish or something. It sounded nothing like an Indian accent. So I can imagine that even the translations, they could be something that's completely different from what you intend. On the other hand, people who listen to audio tapes, they told me, oh, what a fantastic audio tape. We love the way this guy did all these accents and so on. So if they like it, fine. What am I to say?
You raised a very interesting issue of culture and language and culture and literature. Sitangshu, I would like to come to you on this issue. Now, one of the points that we are quite often worried about is culture really restricting us in expressing ourselves? Is culture really stopping us, giving us a frame, or putting us a kind of antenna through which we look at our language? Is our language chained by culture? What do you think? You think that way, or you don't think that way?
I would like to associate language not only with the writer, but also with the readers, with the people, with everybody who reads. Now if you think of that, then each language has a cultural history in a given milieu of people. Now when we think of translation, we do not mainly discuss translation amongst Indian languages. We sort of instinctively focus on translation from Indian languages into English. Now what is the politics going on there? There is a politics of translation also. So what is the politics of translation going on there? Why are we focusing on the problems of translating from Indian languages into English? Let us also face up problems of translating, as you rightly said, this multiple culture that we have. It's not easy for us to move around the country without homogenizing it. So let us maintain our flavors and yet kind of a platter full of good food. So our 19th century Gujarati poet Kant, he converted into Christianity, and he's one of our most favorite poets. So he wanted to describe baptism because he felt very happy that he was baptized. So he wanted to say that now you have poured holy water on me and I'm thankful to you, O God, or whosoever. But he wanted to say that in Gujarati. In Hindi he would have said, आपने मुझे क्या नहलाया, ओ तात जी आपने मुझे क्या नहलाया. तो आप जानते हैं कि ऐसा ही गुजराती में भी है, आपे मने नवराव्यो, ओ तात जी आपे मने नवराव्यो. The meaning is exactly the opposite. आपने मुझे नहला दिया. You duped me. You really fooled me. The point is that when you're translating, culture cannot be put aside. Culture, there is a depth of culture. Unfortunately, we are all human beings, you know, we want world renown and so on. And there are canon formation forces, even in India, which give priority to the world level canon formation. This is the only culture, probably such a powerful culture, such a new nation. But we cannot form our own canons ourselves. Our canon formation is dependent on Sweden and Paris and Washington and whatnot. All sorts of awards are there. I don't even remember their name because they are not so important to my people. But the canon formation powers in India are now following the canon formation patterns of the so-called global this thing. There is nothing global, it is Western. तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि English language has not yet acquired depth beyond 200 years in India. Now, if I ask an Indian writer in writing in English, मैं आपको कहूँ कि अपभ्रंश आपको कैसा लगता है, तो मैं तो आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ, आपको पता चलेगा कि अपभ्रंश क्या है. लेकिन most of our writers, critics and canon formations, they know Sanskrit as language of the Brahmins. And then we speak of Prakrit and Apabhansha. They said, what is Prakrit and what is Apabhansha? So why be prisoners in a cultural history of 200 years? The Bastille of Indian English, which is a 200-year-old false ceiling and false bottom formation, we must break up and we must reach out the entire long history of all sorts of interactions, all sorts of dialogues, all sorts of conversations, all sorts of conflicts amongst ourselves.
Yeah, the problem is also, as you see, is that we're talking about culture, which is very important for us, for our writers. But given the context of India, somebody who's, you are lucky that you speak Gujarati and you live in Gujarat. There are others who write in that particular language but live elsewhere in India. And they have been living in different places, different cities, different cultural spaces. So each one of them would affect, each one of those experiences would really matter to him or her when they write. Now the question is there anything such as Indian culture? Or is it Tamil culture, Gujarati culture, Apabhransha culture, or Prakrit culture, or Sanskrit culture, or Malayalam culture, which is important? So this is something which is very crucial.
Very briefly, Bhakti movement in Gujarati is very powerful, Narasimha Mehta and onwards. Now Bhakti came to Gujarat through Maharashtra from Tamil Nadu. Bhakti Dravide Jata, Bhakti Dravide Upani. And all, if you look at our text closely, Gujarati text closely, you would find Tamil literature within Gujarati. That's what all of us have been saying, that within our mother tongues, there are other languages of India. Unfortunately, languages of power, they do some violence to this easy flow of Tamil. Now Bengal, Bhakti has greatly influenced.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And Bengal, what they call
I mean,
Renaissance.
Could I just say some little, just a completely different thing? I mean, this problem of intertranslation.
Yeah.
I don't know how many official Indian languages there are. Maybe what, 23, 25?
22.
22. Being a mathematician, If you wanted to translate every language into every other Indian language, one work would take 22 into 21 into 20 into 19 into 18 into 17 into, all the way up to 1, called 22 factorial different translations, which is more computer power than the world has seen so far. It's many, many billions. So you can't do that. Mathematically, that's an impossible problem. So I think I'm just throwing that in as, the upper limit in terms
Sure.
of what our capabilities
Sure.
are. This is for one work.
Let me add one more thing, because if you are telling about the Malayalam, there are so many Malayalams around the world. Even in the Kerala, we have each area having separate Malayalam. I am from Central Travancore. I have a separate language. Even from the Malabar coast, they have another language which is extremely different from me. So these slangs they are using, which is almost untranslatable. Our famous writer Vaikam Muhammad Bashir is most of his novels are untranslatable.
But they have been done very well. I mean, if you read Bashir in English, there have been some excellent translations.
But you must read him in Malayalam
sure,
itself,
yeah.
because I will tell one of his book name, that is Endu Papa Quran Endarnu. That is absolutely a slang. My granddad had an elephant. In English, we can tell that Inde, that is my without yam, only y is there. That is their slang. If you are translating that one into English, that essence will
The essence will be lost.
essence will
Yeah.
go back.
Before we move on to the question and answer session, we have the last word from Ambai. Unity and uniformity. There are many issues on this in terms of Indian culture, Indianness. A lot of people talk about unity in diversity, the kind of slogan which has been very important for many, many politicians. But somebody like Suniti Kumar Chatterjee, who knew so many Indian languages, did not want to talk about unity in diversity. He talked about the harmony of contrasts. The fact that we are so different and divergent and so variegated in India, in Indian scenario. That's something which is our strength. We shouldn't forget that. What do you think of this cultural unity or the uniformity issue?
Having been in so many different places, and then I told you the geographical places I moved in. And then I'm married to a Rajasthani, and I have 3 foster children who are Nepalis. So it's like totally different elements coming into my life in harmony. So I don't think of uniformity or unity, but I think in terms of blending everything together. When I first started publishing my stories, the field was not Tamil Nadu. I wrote about Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, so many places. And one of the senior writers, a male writer, he remarked that she writes about people who eat chapatis. So why is she writing in Tamil? So I told him that Tamil is the language I write in, so I can write anything in Tamil. Why should I write only about people who eat idlis? That's not writing a Tamil story. So the field of the story can be very different, but the language will harmonize all the experiences, I feel.
Thank you. Let's now move over to the questions, and I would request the volunteers to please identify and yes, please.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I would like to ask that, yes, you did say that you're comfortable with the language, your mother tongue in writing. But don't you think that people get deprived of the pleasure to read your writings due to the language barriers that they face? Because as you pointed out that there are no such good translations available. So people do get deprived of the pleasure to read your writings. So what about that?
Yeah. Can we pick up 2 or 3 more questions? One from here.
My question is to Mr. Sitanshu. Sir, you said in the beginning that there's a difference between writers who see and writers who want to be seen. Isn't this a very stereotypical way of looking at the artist? I mean, a lady of Charlotte figure, as an artist who's caught in an ivory tower and who doesn't want to go out of it. Also, what is bad with recognizing an artist for what is due to him? Why can't an artist, you know, aspire to be seen and at the same time show the world what he sees? That's my question. Thank you.
Can we have these two answers and then we move over to the other questions?
Okay.
Anybody would like to react?
Okay.
Maybe you have been named, so
Sure. So,
very briefly, and then we can move over to somebody.
there's a, no one, as a reader, I would very much like to admire a writer. So there is no problem. There is no problem. I fully agree with you that the writers should be seen. But when you think of the writer himself or herself, there are two ways in which then writers would start composing their work or painters would start painting and so on. One of the ways would be with a teleological aim, with a purpose in mind to be admired. Now this is something that I am objecting to. As a reader I would like to admire, but as a writer I would like to do something else than be seen. If we are seen, it's fine, but it does some violence to your creativity when then you write poems which could be translated. So, and your question was to me?
Well, I think it's a general question. Let me handle this. You know, there are some people who write in one language, some people who write in several languages. You can't really be writing in so many languages. We have all our own restrictions. And as our eminent panelists have quite rightly said, whatever language they feel most comfortable in, they write in that particular language. So that's the way it is. And I think it's the rest of it, it's the responsibility of the translators to translate. Some of us, like me, who write in 2 different languages or 3 different languages, they can perhaps do justice, but not everybody. You can't have O.V. Vijayan everywhere. You can't have Kiran Nagarkar everywhere. Yes, please.
Let me add one more, sir. Excuse me. Let me add that one. For translation, I am proud to say that me and Jitayil from same village. I am writing in Malayalam and he is writing in English. What we are trying to say to the whole world, it is he himself is saying. It is no different. So some writers are very much thorough in English. So they are writing in English and you are familiar with their stories. No problem.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Sir, as you said, I think and dream in Gujarati, and I write in Gujarati as well. But as we are concerned about youth of India, as जो भी मेरे friend है वो सब English में ही पढ़ते हैं. जो भी literature friend है, as also Gujarati medium student are reading English love stories written by youth young authors. So what about that? I am fearing now that my Gujarati stories will nobody read, you know. So what about that? Sitanshu sir, I will ask from you.
Hi, I had a question. Does language create culture or culture create language?
Okay, we have one more question from here and then we can ask the panelists to react. Yes?
My question, can you hear me? My question is to Manil. Manil, you said that you wanted to write to present India to your students. Now, I think most of the writers in India would have a problem with that, you know, a person writing in a foreign country would like to present India, which is not a part of, like, it's a very complicated and problematic situation. The next question is my language, you know, what is our language? Even if I think in Hindi, our education is like, we have been taught in English, we have been taught to write in English, so we can only write in English. Even if I think in Hindi, I have to translate it into English because I cannot phrase sentences in Hindi. I've lost that ability. The third part...
Can we hold on to those 2 questions? Because too many questions I don't think we can answer.
Okay, so I mean, certainly when I was writing, it was really for myself more than anything else. But what I meant to say is that any writer who's writing in English is presenting, whether they like it or not, whether they're conscious of it or not, they are presenting an image of India to the rest of the world. And now you can do it in 2 ways. If you go back to the 18th century or even before, the way the West actually learned about India was through Western people who came here. There was a French person, the Abbé, I think, Abbé something, I don't know if you're familiar with it. He wrote this big, thick book And it had things like, Indian music makes the ears bleed or something, things like that. He had no idea what Indian culture was. But yet this book was used by people in the West as the definitive word about India. So my thing is that if you're writing about something and if it's going to be published, you are actually representing your country. You are actually, whether you like it or not, whether that's intention or not, you are actually doing that. And so it's important, when we talk about Indians who write in English, it is actually a good thing. It is progress from Westerners who write in English about India. It's better that people from India are writing and actually presenting that.
Yeah, the question that was there on language creating culture and culture creating language.
Let me
It's
answer.
a very long
question. For that question for regional languages. Most of my readers are youths and students. If you have a story to tell, a true story, you don't worry about the language in which we are telling them. I am not worried about I am writing in Malayalam, because in Malayalam itself, as I told earlier, 50th edition of my novel came out. But then why should I worry about another 2,000 copies or 3,000 copies in English? I am very much happy in my own languages, and I am very much happy about the youth. They are reading all my novels. 30 years, college students and school students. I am very much happy about it. If you have some story, you should tell your own language. That is the best way.
So
Yeah, the other question about the, you wish to
Gujarati, let
answer?
me-
Yes, please.
Now there's a very perceptive comment and a question. If there is a Gujarati speaking or Marathi speaking writer today and he writes in that language, there probably wouldn't be anyone to read it. That's what you pointed out. Let us really pause and think about this. Are Indian languages being wiped off the face of India? Have we now so set up our cultural organization and our political and economic apparatus that our own languages will be wiped off India? That's what this young are also saying about. Let us really not, I'm not saying Gujarati Bachao and so on. Our languages are sturdy enough to last for a while. But something is going on here. Once I was asked to inaugurate a school in Vadodara. So the man came to me, said, will you please come and inaugurate the school? I said, what's the school? He said, the school is called Saint Mira School. I said, Saint Mira School? He said, yes, Saint Mira School. So I said, it should be Saint Mary School, and I'll gladly come and inaugurate it. He said, no, this is not Saint Mary. No, this is our Mirabai. Now these things are happening, and these are crisis points. And literary organizations, things like that, canon formation, let it not go in the... Premchand ko nahi diya, Gandhi को नहीं दिया, अग्नेय को उमाशंकर को नहीं दिया, और इंडियन राइटिंग के लिए नायपॉल को दिया. कैनन फॉर्मेशन and all these awards at London, if they give in London, this Booker and things like that, how important they have become to us. Why should they be important to us? They might be important to them. As you rightly said, let us write in English to represent ourselves to England and America and English-speaking people. Let us also write in French and Russian and Chinese so that we represent ourselves to others. But first of all, let us present ourselves to ourselves.
With that note, I think we should come to an end. And it has been an excellent experience speaking to all these panelists. Okay, you have a very short question? Just
एक ही शब्द के बारे में कहना चाहूंगी. मैं संस्कृत की विद्यार्थी रही हूँ, और हम लोग जैसे भाषा और संस्कृति की बात कर रहे हैं कि संस्कृति और भाषा का बहुत जुड़ाव है. हर भाषा उस देश की संस्कृति को बयां करती है. एक शब्द जो बहुत सामान्य रूप से बोला जाता है, मैडम, अगर उसका हम अर्थ करें जर्मनी में तो होता है मादाम, अर्थ है हिंदी में मेरी लुगाई, और हम अगर हमारे हिंदुस्तान में बहन जी या और शब्द से संबोधित करें तो वो हमारे स्टेटस सिंबल को कम करता है। मैडम, मैं भी मैडम सुनना पसंद करती हूँ बनस्पत मेरे को कोई बहन जी कहे, तो क्या ये हमारी संस्कृति के साथ मजाक नहीं है? क्यों ना हम इन छोटी छोटी चीजों से अपनी संस्कृति को, अपने कल्चर को बचाएं। थैंक यू।
Thank you, बहन जी, for asking this question. I'm sure with that note we can stop here and we can keep discussing among ourselves over lunch. And I'm very happy with all the panelists giving their frank opinion on various issues connected with language and culture. And thanks to JLF for this event.
Thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful panel. Please accept these scarves as our thanks. And I'd also like to thank again the National Book Trust for presenting this panel to us. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, there is going to be another event on this stage as soon as our speakers step off. This is the launch of the Ramayana in Arabic version that the ICCR has brought out, so please stay tuned. It's a very important and interesting translation that has come out. So that will happen here on the stage right now. I'd like to repeat again that the session with Rahul Dravid, Corner of a Distant Playing Field, will be at this venue at 3:30, and Out of Africa that was scheduled for here will move to the Mughal tent. So please make that note in your programs. So for now, please clear the stage. Volunteers, can you please distribute the pamphlets? The 3:30 program here will be distant corner of a playing field with Rahul Dravid and others. The Out of Africa session that was programmed for here at 3:30 will be moving to the Google Mughal tent. Please make that change in your programs. And now we'd like to announce the launch of the Ramayana Arabic version, which is supported by the ICCR. And we'd like to thank the ICCR for releasing this book very much. May I request Mr. Suresh Goel, Director General of the ICCR, to please step on stage. May I request Professor Shahid Mehdi, Kalimaji, please. Namita Gokhale,